get mocking. Drafts are going to be here before you know it.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host, Nick Schreck, and today, guys, I'm here doing a mock draft live. I'm going to talk about some ADPs, guys I like, guys I don't like, and I am here solo as we head into arguably the two most important weeks of the preseason for fantasy football and NFL. It's draft season, guys, and the only way we can bring you some podcast daily is to get some solo ones out there. We've got two in the queue from Walsh and Vinny. We apologize for our absence, but with a lot going on with COVID and some personal things, but we are back and we are here. I'm going to be doing a mock draft, guys, today on fantasyfootballcalculator.com. You're not going to be able to join it because this will be airing after, but I'm in draft 8301932. It is a 12-team PPR mock draft. So typically I do 10 teams, but 12 seems to be the only ones that are filling at this point in the day. It is midday on Tuesday, the 25th. So I know some of you guys are still doing full-time jobs, so we can't mock draft all the time. But regardless, we're here. This draft starts in about 15 seconds. I am pick number 5, and we have no computers in the draft at this point. So I expect the first few rounds to be actual human picks, and as we go through the rest, they are going to fall apart a little bit. But on that note, guys, I hope you have been mocking, doing your research. There's a ton of good resources out there. Obviously, the podcast is one. Fantasy Football Calculator tends to be our go-to for ADPs. I'm personally a big fan of EstablishTheRun.com. Pro Football Focus. There's a lot of good resources, guys. But with the draft kicking off, let's walk through the top of the draft. I think it's a no-brainer. Christian McCaffrey is the number 1 overall pick. It's who I would be taking at number 1 if I was there. And I just don't think it's a question beyond that. You could argue Saquon. You can argue Zeke for number 2. So the draft just went Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and Alvin Kamara, which leaves me really right where I want to be at number 5. And my pick is going to be Mr. Dalvin Cook at number 5 overall. So he's an ongoing injury risk, guys, but he had 1,810 total yards, 62 catches, and 15 touchdowns over his last 16 games. He just there's just nothing to – I can't hate, right? I'm worried about the contract a little bit. They say he's not going to show up. We're still drafting with the expectation he is going to show up, that we're going to have a full season. There is some risk, but I don't think he has a ton of options with the CBA holdout stuff. So his green zone carries tie Christian McCaffrey and Nick Chubb for the best in the NFL, despite playing only 14 games compared to their 16 last year. So I think he is perfect where he is. If he falls a little bit in drafts, I think it's a nice value. We watched Michael Thomas come off the board at pick number 6. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 7, Derrick Henry at 8, Kenyon Drake at 9, Miles Sanders at 10, Josh Jacobs here at 11, Joe Mixon at 12, and Julio Jones at 13. So Aaron Jones, guys, is a guy that we talked about on some of the previews. Scared. 1, I don't believe in the hype. 2, I'm shocked Julio Jones is off the board before. You got Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. Devontae just came off the board. 4th pick in the second round. I'm sorry. Austin Eckler's gone. Tyreek Hill is gone. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. And again, we're playing PPR, so we have to keep that in mind as I kind of look through the draft here. Nick Chubb is probably the next best guy on my board, who just came off the board. I'm sorry, so that is out. We're going to do something I typically don't do. We're going to take Travis Kelce here. Let's see how my team plays out. So Travis Kelce had the 5th pick in the second round reverse side of the 5th pick, but it was my second selection. So we went tight end early in PPR, target machine. Tight end 1, tight end 1, tight end 2, and tight end 1 over the last 4 years. He's due for some positive TD regression after only scoring 5 in 2019. So obviously good things to come. We get a pretty solid wide receiver chunk that stays on the board here. Running backs drop off quickly, guys. I think for me, my last one's Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones mixed in there, and then Austin Eckler. And then we drop off for like 12 picks or so for me. So that's kind of why I did what I did. I figured I'd go with the tight end and see where we end up. I'm looking the next top running back on the board for me is James Conner, I think. So if James Conner comes back around, we'll see. George Kittle, guys, for reference, went one pick after me. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin off the board. So the second round is pretty much pass catchers as we look at this mock, at least. Pretty much Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb. So 3 of 12 have been running backs. All the others are pass catchers, tight ends, or wide receivers. So expect that trend to continue. I think the most interesting thing here is going to be where the QB starts to come off the board, right? We preach that we wait on QB, and it's something I'm going to do here. I'm not going to try and stack Patrick Mahomes. As a Chiefs fan, I would love it, and I'm sure that's part of my bias of taking Travis Kelce here. It's not necessarily my draft day strategy yet, but it's something I've been toying with and playing with. I want to see how the team falls out on the podcast here. James Conner comes off the board along with Kenny Golladay. Lamar Jackson off the board, guys. Second pick in the third round. First QB gone. He's priced right. And there goes Patrick Mahomes at the third pick in the third round. Not my guy. Not my cup of tea at the price, I should say. But it is understandable to say the least. I will roll the dice not even roll the dice. I'll take a value QB, so to speak, in the later rounds when everyone's kind of filled out their teams. And for the record, guys, I'm not going to go through every all 15 rounds of the draft here. At some point, everyone's going to bail out, and we're going to end up in a cycle, so to speak, of auto picks, and that's not fun for anybody. Chris Carson comes off the board. I'm going to go with Adam Thielen here. We're going to get a pass catcher. Le'Veon Bell's on the board. Todd Gurley, David Johnson, but Adam Thielen's going to be my guy. So now I've got one of each in PPR. Happy with Dalvin Cook's targets, happy with Travis Kelce targets. Adam Thielen's going to eat, I think, without Stephon Diggs. Not worried about him there. Gives us a great upside opportunity in a PPR draft. So super, super pumped on that. Let's see what else we got. As I look at the board here, I'm trying to think on the way back. We just watched Le'Veon Bell go, Allen Robinson, OBJ. I think I'm going to look to target. I would like maybe a second back here. Get me some Melvin Gordon. There's a bunch of wide receivers on the board still. But we're starting to get into this territory of where I'm going to have to take some dart throws. And there are some guys a little bit later on. I just think Melvin Gordon, they went out, they made him the guy. He's the lead back in a run-friendly environment. Had some time to get himself together. So we'll see if he comes back to me. David Johnson just went. Jonathan Taylor off the board. Leonard Fournette off the board. We talked about Fournette. Those numbers are skewed from last year. If you missed that, go back and listen to the Jaguars preview. A lot of smoke but no fire. So Walsh and I believe, at least based on the preview podcast we did on the Jaguars there. All right, Team 12's taking their time here. We're going to see where we swing back around. Things have slowed down a little bit, so I'm thinking we get maybe through round 5 or so, and then we'll recap. We'll talk about some other guys we think that are good, some good options, so to speak, sleepers, overpriced, all that fun stuff for you guys. I'm just trying to see what else we've got here. So Juju came off the board. We're waiting on Team 12's second pick. I think he's auto picking out now. So we're going to wait for him to time out until we get through it. So while that's going, guys, I'll talk to you about some other guys I do like. Tight ends are tough. Someone that does still interest me a bunch is Noah Fant from Denver. Currently 121 overall is the average ADP coming off the board, which I think is a little old, but that's okay. I just tight ends are such a crapshoot, right? I mean, I don't know if there's enough to go around, so to speak, but I think he's a guy that I'm interested late if I need a tight end, depending on your league, if they stack them. Robert Woods just came off the board, guys. Second pick in the 4th round. Chase Edmonds is another one I think that somebody needs to look at a ton. He's a no doubt running back 1 if Drake goes down. And yeah, I know Drake, they gave him a ton of money, $8.5 million transition tender. He obviously has job security. I don't think it would be crazy for for anything to happen. Arizona ranked number 2 in rushing DVOA behind only Baltimore in Kingsbury's first year. I think that's important. I think that's extremely notable. Melvin Gordon comes off the board before my pick, so that obviously throws me for a loop I was not quite ready for. Do I want to roll a dice on running back or wide receiver? I'm looking at Mostert, but I think I'm going to take another wide receiver here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take DJ Shark. So, team currently, guys, Dalvin Cook, Travis Kelce, Adam Thielen, and DJ Shark. That's through 4 rounds and 12-team PPR draft. Happy with where I stand in the running game, my 2 wide receivers and my tight end. I'm playing with the mindset of 3 wide receivers or kind of that flex opportunity for a wide receiver or running back, no tight end or super flex, regardless of how the settings here are. So as I think about filling out my team, I'm not worried about QB. I'm not worried about defense. I'm not worried about kicker, and that shouldn't be a shock to anybody, quite frankly. Coming back around, I'm going to look at Raheem Mostert, see if he can make it back to me. That's probably going to be my top target at this point, and we'll see. We'll see if he can do that. So this is where it gets not great, right? I'm looking at the running backs on the board, and it's just kind of like I got Mark Ingram, Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, Kareem Hunt, Ronald Jones, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, James White, J.K. Dobbins, Marlon Mack, Jordan Howard. And this is the default fantasy football calculator rankings I'm reading down, not what I'm necessarily going on. We'll see where it all falls. Raheem Mostert went off the board. He did not come back to me. So not super pumped on that, but it is what it is. Let's see if the next guy stays. I got 1 pick. I don't know that he's going to. He's not. He's going to auto-pick to this team here, which is unfortunate. My pick will be Mark Ingram if he stays on the board. And he does, DeAndre Swift. So Mark Ingram's going to be, I need a running back here, and it is what it is. I think as I look at the rest of my what's coming around the next bend here, would draft Keenan Allen if he comes back to me, Terry McLaurin, even maybe some Cortland Sutton. Okay, so Keenan Allen went the pick after me. So that is obviously out. I'm just looking at, Cortland Sutton. Ingram, I'm worried about some of the touchdown regression on him, guys, but I don't think that Dobbins is there yet. Obviously, if he goes down, Dobbins is a stud, totally worth every penny, but I'm not concerned about him stealing the workload, at least at this point. I'm watching the chat blow up. Everyone's talking about drafting Leonard Fournette. That was foolish in round 3. They're talking about the Colts and some of the decisions that people are making with some Colts players, which, again, I probably won't own any shares of, which not the worst thing in the world. I'm just trying to plan out ahead, guys, who's going to come back to me, because Cortland Sutton's the only guy left on my list that I had just established. So I like me some Michael Gallup as well. I'm going to put him on my list here. I would ideally like another running back. Not super pumped on my depth of Dalvin Cook and Mark Ingram, but I don't know where I'm going to take those dart throws at this point. Sutton came off the board, so Michael Gallup, I believe, is going to come to me here. He was number 6 in receiving yards a game in 2019, number 10th among wide receivers in yards and routes run. He's going to come off the board here to me in the middle of the 6th round, we'll say. And I think from here, guys, we're going to do one more round, and then I am going to go off the air for the rest of the draft. You don't need to hear me drone on and on about more picks, but we'll talk about some of the things I did, how I feel now, which I think you can already get a vibe for, and a couple of guys that I still like. I think that we need to take a deeper, quote-unquote, look at some guys that I do like for 0 running back targets. We'll see how they all play out. The pick that still gets me the most, guys, and I don't know what to make of it, right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 7th pick overall here in this mock draft. I don't have his full ADP in front of me. It's probably about what his current ADP is. So he's currently coming off the board exactly there. 1.07 overall. That's a 12-team PPR draft. I'm actually going to go into computer control, guys. So that's going to be it for me through 6 rounds. As I look at some of the ADPers here, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's the guy in Kansas City, stud, going to get fed the ball, rookie, and I'm a Chiefs fan, and that concerns me a little bit. I'm fine with him being a late first-round pick. I don't know that I personally have the stomach to do it, but but I think he's priced right for the upside and the opportunity in a great offense, in a team that mostly has stayed together, that he seems to be doing well with and meshing with and being able to learn from some of those guys. And in a COVID offseason, that's huge. So I think there's good opportunity for Clyde. I'll see how I develop my feelings. So they go into drafts this weekend, next weekend, and then I think the Wednesday before the season opener for the Kansas City Chiefs, what I want to do with Clyde Edwards there. But I'm also a big Josh Jacobs fan. I love him at 1.9. Joe Mixon, that offense is pointing up. I'm definitely a fan. Miles Sanders, I'll talk about him in a minute. Austin Eckler. Chubb, I have slight concerns. We watched that number just drop a little bit with Kareem Hunt there last year when he really got into it. But Aaron Jones, biggest red flag for me. We talked about the TD regression, everything else. He's coming off 7th pick in the 2nd round. I just auto-drafted Deshaun Watson in the 7th round, which is not the worst thing. But not what I would have done. I would have passed and continued the stacking of running. I would have had to get a running back. I got 3 wide receivers at this point. Aaron Jones came off the board 14 overall in this mock draft, I should say. He's coming off the board 20 overall on average. Better, but still not happy with the price when I look at some of the other guys here. Chris Carson. Melvin Gordon, I think, is a fucking value at 38 overall, first pick in the 4th round. I just don't get it. Why we're avoiding Melvin Gordon, quote unquote. But big fan. David Johnson, if you believe he's healthy. Todd Gurley at 32 overall. So definitely some good things here. I'm just looking at some zero RB guys you may want to consider. Miles Sanders, guys. He has a major role in the goal line and in the receiving game. Jordan Howard leaves behind 12. Green zone carries from last season, and Sanders already had 14. So he's looking at about 20. He averaged 3.1 receptions last season, and he went up to 4.3 receptions per game in his final 6. He costs a lot, right? He's a 7th pick on average in the 1st round, but I'm really not concerned about the opportunity. I think he ends up over 50 targets in 2019 easily. His pass catching floor and upside as a true workhorse is too much to pass up on. Kenyon Drake, maybe the other guy in the 1st round here that gives me, well, 1st round depends on, I guess, where you are, but it gives me major pause, right? So Kenyon Drake, 12th pick in the 1st round. So if you're in a 12-team league, coming off the board in the 1st, if not, just in the 2nd. He's got to fall, I think, in the 2nd for me to truly be willing to roll the dice. He's averaged 3.5 receptions per game in his 8 games as a Cardinal last season. He was on pace for 22 green zone carries, which is a metric established the run uses. He's expensive. I mean, I know he exploded. I know he carried some of you guys through to championships, and but I think you can't just fall in love with the recency bias and what you know, right? It's easy. The pings you hear in the background are just the auto picks of the draft, and this is why I don't like auto pick. It has now drafted me a 2nd QB in 3 rounds. So I now own Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers, which is something I would not have done, and I would not have taken either of them. So it is what it is. A guy I think, and this plays into some of the Chiefs' backfield situation, guys, that we talked about. Walsh and I did that preview. We talked about the Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, and we talked about, this was before Damien Williams opted out, obviously. We're concerned about how their ADPs were, but we talked a lot about DeAndre Washington, right? He played for the Raiders. They had a ton of meetings in the past, obviously. Damien Williams opting out makes a clear path for DeAndre Washington to be the number 2 back in Andy Reid's offense, which tends to historically show some value, right, for versatile backs. He caught 124 passes in 4 years at Texas Tech and 88 over 4 seasons as the Raiders' backup. I think he is somebody that you can take a late-round flyer on, and let's see, where is he? 6th pick in the 13th round. There's nothing I hate down there, right? You can take a stab at any of these guys, roll a dice on anybody, and it's okay. But I think that's somebody, obviously being a Chiefs fan and knowing that is something that's worth watching. If you need a QB, guys, that doesn't hurt me, but I feel like this is going to make Walsh happy. Tyrod Taylor, starting QB for the Chargers. He's the guy, right? And he gets Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler, which is, or it's not even arguably, it is the most explosive offense of his career. I think he's a popular DFS play at the very, 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 very least. And we'll do a DFS episode as we go into week 1, guys. But for weeks 1 through 3, they play the Bengals, Chiefs, and Panthers. Tyrod Taylor is going to eat. I think Austin Eckler is going to eat. And you're going to have a ton of fantasy points there. So I got to look at if you're maybe streaming QBs, you want to take somebody late and you're going to play those matchups. I think he's a great option, especially in those first early weeks. Bengals doing better, but they're still going to get shredded. Chiefs defense, still not great. And the Panthers have been just smacked around. Also fun, but to watch, but they've been smacked around and they're going to continue to be smacked around. There's some other guys here, but we're going to do a sleepers and overpriced podcast, guys. But as I look at the mock, just a quick recap, and I'll stop you from listening to me drone on. Julio Jones is the second wide receiver off the board. For me, was a little surprising. I thought that should have been Devontae Adams as a slam dunk. I honestly think you can make the case for Tyreek Hill over Julio Jones as well. So Julio came off the 13th pick. 16th pick was Devontae Adams. 17th pick was Tyreek Hill. So that's just a personal preference there. I probably would have swapped those guys. Austin Eckler going after Aaron Jones, I think, is a crime. Leonard Fournette, although the third running back for this team, I would have just gone elsewhere. I just don't think it was worth the pick at all. And as I look at my team, guys, Dalvin Cook, Travis Kelce, Adam Thielen, DJ Shark, Mark Ingram, Michael Gallup, that was my last pick. I'm super scared at running back. And it continues to reinforce why tight end early is something I historically don't do. Despite Travis Kelce being a stud, it leaves you scrambling for running backs as you move through the draft board. Also, personally, I don't really love drafting from 5, but that was the last spot in this draft I could select, and here we are. So it's good to draft around in different spots, guys, get a feel, unless you know your predetermined draft order, which in that case, just draft from where you're going to pick. But otherwise, play the field, play a bunch of different options. These drafts are tough, especially as you get later on. Personally, I like Fantasy Football Calculator better than ESPN, Yahoo, NFL, where I feel like those end up with just crazy picks, or they go for a round and people bail. But there tend to be more users there. So pro and con, I do prefer Fantasy Football Calculator for it. But all their tools are free, or at least for what you guys need. So check them out, guys. Get mocking. Drafts are going to be here before you know it. We are taking questions daily. Send them in via the website, Twitter, Instagram, email, info@letstalkfantasyfootball.com if you want to drop us one, and we will go from there. But, guys, that is going to be the first live mock draft here of 2020, going through 7 rounds, really 6, starting 7. And I'll be honest, I'm not happy with how it turned out. I'm scared of running back. So we're going to make some changes. We'll come back. Maybe we'll do another mock draft for you guys tomorrow. And we'll talk about where I'm going now, making some changes, and hoping for the best. But, guys, for Let's Talk Fantasy Football, I am Nick Schreck, and we will catch you on the flip side.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.